plays like an old school board game, much like Monopoly. It's a deck building, card battling roguelite. It's a surreal stylized hand-drawn RPG. There's a breeding system, multiple meta progression systems, and town building, loosely, and a skill tree. Yeah, there's a lot of ambition here. And I'm wondering, will all these systems combine to create something great or collapse in on themselves? What hooked me? The gameplay loop has this one more run quality to it that honestly is hard to pull away from. You start by breeding your hero. At the beginning, this is between two random villagers, and you choose them by looking at their stats and traits. You can choose a background if you have any buildings built. This can add to your base stats and help you out at the beginning of a run. And finally, before you head out, you can choose a sign. You don't have to, but these tend to define your interaction with the board. Warrior gives you more combat experience, but makes you stop at every battle regardless of dice roll. And Merchant makes you automatically stop at all the shops, but shop prices are increased by 20%. You roll dice and move around the board with different spots to land on: traps, shops, treasure, combat, and a few others. It gives that family board game night anticipation as you wait to see what you land on after the dice roll. And trust me, the dice are rarely kind. Combat is card-based turn by turn. At the beginning, this will be just you against one enemy, but as you progress, the battles can get harder and fights have more combatants. Depending on your stats, these fights can be pretty punishing, but when winning, you might level up and gain a stat increase. Here, you pick between attack, defense, crit chance, evasion, and health. When you pick one, it increases the stat by a percentage. This is ultimately how you amass strength, if you know how to quit when you're ahead. This is where the real crux of the run comes into play. After the third turn, you can retreat back to the village, or you can keep going for more loot. Now, this is an interesting gamble because if you keep going, you can get levels and resources to build up your town, skill tree, and hero. But, and I cannot stress this enough, you can and will die. In the beginning, this can be pretty abrupt. I'm talking first turn of a battle that you thought would be easy, boom, done. Now, at first, you simply just lose the resources you gained and start again. Breed a new hero and continue playing. But once you've bred a few heroes and started up a successful bloodline, you won't want to lose that. You see, making it back to town from a run safe means that hero will enter the breeding pool. When breeding, stats are average between the mother and the father. This means that if you last for a while in a run and you get a hero with, say, 100 defense, and you breed that hero, the child will have at least 50 defense. That's a considerable increase over the starting 5 or so that you would get on average. This means that you want to keep pushing to get a more powerful hero to breed, but you want to retreat so that hero's actually alive to breed. This is where a lot of the tension comes from in the loop, and it's really satisfying when you feel like you left at the right time with a decently large haul, a hero that's gotten some good stats, and now you can spend those resources upgrading your buildings and furthering your skill tree. And then when you breed that hero, boom, you have a great starting hero for your next run. The card combat is simple but enjoyable. You start with around 20 cards in your deck. If you want to focus on a specific playstyle, you can thin that down to 8. Or if you unlock more cards through shops on a run and want to add them, you can increase that deck size to 24. It's no Slay the Spire, but it doesn't need to be. With this many systems working together, you aren't going for that kind of depth, but it is enjoyable. That doesn't leave the game without its problems. RNG can feel pretty brutal at times. Landing on a combat space and drawing no defensive cards, so you die in the first turn to 2 common mobs, it's a thing that can and will happen. That's why you need to focus on HP growth to mitigate that. But in my 5 hours of play, I've noticed one thing in this game. Defense stacking is king. You need HP in case you don't draw your block cards, but once you unlock enough block cards to virtually prevent that from happening, stacking defense is your best bet for a clear. This is partly because blocking massive amounts of damage is a good way to smooth out the difficulty curve of the game, but also you're kind of pushed towards it by your starting deck. There are cards that take your block stat and use it to damage your enemies, making a good defense the best offense. So far, from what I've seen, there are no cards that affect the other stats in this manner. That means when deciding what stat to add points to during a level up, defense is just the most economic. It's the most efficient. I reduced my deck to 8 cards, just the cards that deal damage with your block and cards that give you block. And I alternate level up points between HP and defense. That's what I found to be the most reliable way to a smoother run. And from looking around at other people's runs, it seems to be the way to go. On top of this, the math the game uses when gaining stats invalidates many of its other systems. When in a run, stat gains from leveling are percentage based, meaning they grow multiplicatively. The more of a stat you have, the more it grows. That's a problem when the skill tree, in this game it's called Legacy of Heroes, and the bonuses given to you by buildings are additive. After 1 or 2 runs, if you've managed to gain some levels, these starting stat bonuses feel meaningless. If you have 200 health and gain 20% on level up, I'm not sure the actual percentages, but this is just an example, you gain 40 health. But the increase you gain from your building or your skill tree is more like 20, and that's if you had progressed those systems. That's a pretty big structural design flaw, and it ruins the best aspect of this game, which is all those systems from different genres fusing together. That doesn't matter if half of them are meaningless. And that's where I felt let down. And upon this realization, my review went from a buy to a skip almost immediately. I went to the Steam forums to see if maybe I was missing something, a mechanic I hadn't unlocked yet, a system I wasn't interacting with properly, but no. I saw many complaints just like mine. But then I saw something more important that gave me instant hope. If there was a complaint, almost always directly under it, there was the dev responding. Time and time again I saw this. Sure, some things went unanswered, but those seemed to be redundant discussions that were already being fielded, or fresh posts. They weren't the usual dismissals or empty statements simply brushing off people's concerns. There were real responses from a dev trying to get all the constructive feedback they could so they could make their game better. That kind of receptiveness and passion behind a game is what I love to see. Not only did the dev mention looking at the stat gaining system and redoing the math to make the other stat gaining systems more worthwhile, but they were addressing issues I hadn't seen yet. The length of runs can get to be a bit much, and under that complaint, the dev said, "To address this, I'm currently building a caravan system. This will allow players to choose their starting point from any region where they've already defeated the boss. You won't have to trudge through the early zones every single time." Addressing particular biomechanics that can be unfair, to have them be something that you can play around and not just something there to punish you. Addressing the defense supremacy issue. Saying, seriously considering a system where defense either resets or significantly decays at the end of the turn. Finally, addressing the simplicity of the cards in the game, stating that they want to provide more complexity and tactical choice in the deck building. This is a dev who's really listening, and seems to genuinely want to make their game into something special. Now, I know what you're going to say. Talk is cheap and I'll believe it when I see it. And that's fair to be skeptical. As for why I actually think this game is so interesting, it's the fusion of multiple genres in one place. I truly believe this is the future of indie games. With the market oversaturated with roguelikes, deck builders, survivor-likes, the games that actually make their mark are the ones that feel fresh. I'm not talking putting 2 genres next to each other and having them coexist. I mean, taking systems from each genre and having them augment each other in meaningful ways. And at $12, this indie title does that. The combat influences the breeding system. You crave stats based on how you've built your deck. The breeding system leverages the permadeath of roguelike gameplay loop in a much more meaningful way instead of just starting at the beginning of a dungeon. The board game traversal and dice rolls provide a source of tension that can't be controlled, always pushing you to want to gain power in the right way because that's what you can control. There are other games in the indie space that fuse genre, but it's usually a couple of genres, like how we see a surge of inventory management survivor-likes crop up. Those are great, but it's 2 genres put together and it's already starting to feel kind of saturated. The ambition of Boardlike and its massive ingredient list is what makes it uniquely interesting to me. I think this game has some crazy potential, but where it's currently at, well, that's exactly why my verdict is wait. But it's not wait for a sale. It's wait to see what the game turns into. The defense issue takes what would otherwise be a great game and narrows it down to a simple just make one number go up. Roguelites often fall into the number go up trap, and it can be fine if there's a creative way to do it. But with how basic the deck building is and the cards are, it's not enough to make number go up an interesting strategy. I know that seemed kind of like a cop-out, but I do genuinely mean wishlist it and watch the progress, not to ignore this game. Because with all the games I play, this game keeps pulling me back in, even with its current issues. That doesn't happen to me often. And that's kind of what reviews on this channel are about. I want to give games their fair shake going to somebody's library and being enjoyed. So those of you thinking, I don't know why you made this video, I say it's to show people this game that I think could end up being a fantastic blend of deck builder, RPG, board game, roguelite fun. One question: what game kept drawing you back in and pushing you back out? Let me know in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, a like and a sub would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to grow my channel and every little bit helps. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next video. I stream on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, so feel free to stop by and say hi. As always, I'll be back later in another video. Peace out. And a special thanks to all our members for supporting the channel. You guys are what allows me to keep making these videos and doing what I love, so thank you.